We're making decisions that are going to impact our ability to achieve the company metrics to hit longer term goals that we want to achieve. And so it's a very high stakes moment in any type of planning process. So you have to be analytical, you have to be detail oriented, and you have to be grounded in the customer and the market. Like, that's my role as the sales leader and the face to the market. My role is to bring the reality of the market and the customer and the prospect. And it's finance's role to say, these are the binary metrics we must hit. And then it's the role of all of us to actually sit down, put our egos to the side, and come with a plan that's achievable, that's aggressive, and something that we don't lose sight of the customer on.
I'm Devin Reed.
And I'm Sheena Badani.
And you're watching Reveal, the Revenue Intelligence podcast powered by Gong.
Keep watching here to see the full interview. Or if you like to listen to podcasts on the go, check out the links in the description below.
And if you like what you hear, subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, or all of them. Why not? And while you're there, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. We personally read every single one, and I think I speak for both of us when I say they mean the world to us.
Could not agree more, Devin. Now, without further ado, here's the episode you've been waiting for.
All right, Chris, it is always a pleasure to hang out with you, to talk to you, so I appreciate you jumping on Reveal with us.
No, thank you for having me. I'm excited to do this.
And I know the world is getting in a better place because we've rescheduled a few times. Now, that's not to guilt you. It's a good thing because you've been traveling again, which means the world's opening up. You're visiting, hopefully, buyers and buying prospects. So I'm excited that you're on the move and the world's heading in that direction again.
Yeah. No, thank you. And apologies again for the reschedules. But yeah, it's actually felt really good to get back out there. And I had a rep who said, "Hey, I've got a couple big prospects. I want to line up meetings." And before they even finished the sentence, I was like, "Yes, flight is booked." Oh, you wanted to Zoom? No, it's face to face now. We are going live.
That's funny.
Doesn't matter what stage they're in.
Yeah, like, Chris, are you going to be on the Zoom link? And you're like knocking on their door. Like, no, I'm here. Exactly. I'm here with lunch if you want to hang out.
Yeah, I would normally ask a bunch of questions to determine, like, is it really worth my time? And is this a real opportunity? I was like, no, let's go. Let's knock out the cobwebs here.
Well, let's get into what those meetings look like a little bit, because you are the Chief Sales Officer over at Compass. And for those who might not be familiar with Compass, can you just give us like a really quick rundown of what you're all about and what you're focused on as CSO?
Yeah, so we are a real estate tech firm. So what we do is we provide technology programs and support in a single platform for real estate agents to empower them to really save time, provide a better experience for their clients, as well as grow their business. And that is singularly our core focus. So whatever we can do to make a real estate agent's life easier, we will do it. And so as Chief Sales Officer, what I do is I lead the growth team nationally. And what we do is we reach out to prospective agents, walk them through a sales cycle, and ultimately sign them up to join Compass.
Lovely. And is Compass international?
We are not international,
not yet.
Which is why I'm only national.
Yeah, I heard that, and that's why I was like, maybe that'll come up in the interview in a little bit if you start traveling internationally, and that's why we can't talk. Very cool. Very cool.
Well, and we have to wish you congrats on an IPO earlier this year in March. So our congrats to you on that. You. And this is actually the second company that you've led towards a successful IPO, the first being Eventbrite. So what did you learn this time around? Anything surprise you that you didn't come across last time?
I think... there's a lot of similarities where there's, a lot of prep and anticipation for it. I think with Eventbrite, we were very open about it internally and very maniacally focused on it. Company meetings, it became a lot of part of what we did was IPO. At Compass, we did a really nice job of not distracting the team with it. everyone knew that, hey, there was a possibility of it happening within a certain period of time. Everyone knew that, yes, the metrics that we're driving towards will eventually lead to this outcome. But what we didn't want to do is bog down the team with having this extra stress of I have to achieve this in order to get, which I think worked really, really well, which is really exciting. And, the other piece that really, I think really differentiated was the amount of runway and space we have to continue to grow. As we were going through this, and after you talking with investors and just you just learn more about your business and yourself as you go through one of these processes, it reaffirmed for me that we're just barely scraping the surface of the potential of what we can do, which is incredibly exciting and invigorating versus getting to an IPO and then going, okay, what's next? Or, okay, let's just maintain mode. And that's not at all what we're in. We're still in, heavy growth mode. How do we continue to, conquer the world and, deliver a great service while doing it?
That's so great. I love the perspective that you all took at Compass on that front. I think a lot of folks, especially if it's like their first time being at a company when they're going public, like that's the end game. Like everyone's just like working for that IPO, but actually there needs to be a mind shift where that's actually in many ways the beginning, like you said. Like you're entering, it's just capital to keep the business growing and building to that next step. What is the next evolution of the company? I think like being able to keep the employees, the team, laser focused, like keep doing what you're doing. You were doing great. Keep doing that is highly, highly critical. Yeah.
On day of IPO, I called over 100 people. I just timed out in the day to be able to call that many people, but that were on the team and thanked them, congratulated them. But then to your point, also reinforce that message of, everything that you've done has gotten us to this point, but we're still at the beginning, right? We're still in the first inning, and that I think that was exciting for them. It was exciting to also to be able to make those calls. Like it was just such an honor to also have that conversation and share that moment with so many people.
Super thoughtful.
Absolutely. I'm curious, Chris. So I remember in the Eventbrite days, there was it was Randy, CFO, business guy, and you would constantly like, we're shooting for profitability. When we get profitability, we're going to go public. I remember I was in the stands. I remember seeing you on stage. I remember these moments. And then you said Compass was like the opposite of that. I'm curious, like if that's like your new philosophy, right? Like, so in 10 or 100 years, whenever you leave Compass, and you're at a company that's, projecting towards an IPO, do you think you'll kind of take the Eventbrite approach, the Compass approach, or is it kind of just depends on the team, depends on where the company's at?
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to predict and say, this is what I will do. I think I would probably err more on this side of the Compass approach. And that's not to say that, we weren't transparent. We were very transparent with our intentions. We were very transparent with the business metrics. But we didn't apply this additional pressure of we must in order to. Sure. We built a plan and executed to it. And we knew if we did that, then the outcomes would we would get there. And so I would probably err up more on the side of Compass and allow the team the space to breathe and operate and make the decisions freely to do what they believe is the right thing for the business and the long-term health of the business versus a short-term goal to achieve and this lingering IPO thing looming over their head.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Well, hey, you're already talking about it. You're talking about planning, and that's exactly what we brought you on the show to talk about. So I know that you have a pretty specific philosophy, all right? Some techniques that you use when planning the back half of a year. I don't know if that's the same for the first 6 months. You can tell me. But to get us started, what are the core pillars that you focus on when you begin planning? And do you have like a framework that you can share?
Yeah. Well, I can talk through it. I'm not sure if it's a core framework, but I do have a sequence of things that I do. I think first and foremost, before I ever get to a planning process, every single new hire, every single leader, and we constantly communicate this is we are a flexible organization, and you have to be ready for change, and you have to be adaptable, which can be tough for a salesperson. I fully recognize it can be tough for any individual. And, salesperson, you have a quota, you have a pipeline, you feed your family on it. And changing that and having massive swings can be very difficult. And so, we specifically plan in a 6-month cycle. At the company level, we'll plan, annual cycles, and we have, multi-year goals. When we roll out something to our team, the growth team, we'll roll it out in a 6-month plan. And really the reason being is the market changes way too fast, right? If we're doing the same thing now as we were at the beginning of the year, that just means we haven't adapted to what's happening right now, and we're probably doing it wrong. Right. So, we have to be able to be adaptable to the business needs. So, that becomes critical, is that we have a team that's flexible and understands. This is not to say that we swing the team back and forth wildly and, completely disrupt their pipelines, and then suddenly everyone's starting from scratch. We build in what we call as holdover periods. So in the plan, we will build over a time period for people to run through their current pipeline and finish that out while they're building up whatever the new focus may be. The new focus may be a new market, it may be a new customer base, a new product line, whatever it is. And so we give the runway. And that works really well, and people can get behind that. Whenever we go into a planning process, the first thing that I'm always asking is, okay, what do we need next year? And, ultimately, what were you trying to achieve? Because really, a lot of the decisions that we're making right now, especially at a halfway point, are all going to impact us next year. So if I need, whatever number I need next year, I know I'm going to have to hire a certain amount of people now because of the time it takes to onboard, get them hired, get them onboarded, get them ramped, and then we have that full productivity. So, we're planning for that. I'm also trying to understand what, from our financial metrics, what do we need to be able to achieve? I'm then mapping to, which gets lost a lot, is what is the reality of the team we have and what is the reality of the market? So based on these financial metrics, what moves or initiatives or things that we have to drive, and then will the current team and the current market be able to bear that? So a lot of times, if you just get in, a lot of companies will get into just maniacally focused on these are the metrics we have to achieve and completely lose sight of the customer. What we're doing here is we're building for the customer. We're creating and delivering a service for the customer. And the customer knows nothing of our internal performance metrics that we need to achieve, that we apply to ourselves. And so there's a balance of how do we solve for both of those components. And so we'll generally take two approaches. We'll take a tops-down and a bottoms-up approach. It's generally like you do a tops-down or you just do a bottoms-up. We will actually run both. And we will ask, what do we need to achieve? What do we need to do next year? What are the steps we need to do to get there? Okay, in order for that, here's the bottoms-up approach. All right, now let's all sit down together, finance, operations, growth, everyone, all the key constituents, and let's decide, is this the right thing to do? Do we want to spend this level of money? Is this how we want it to? Where are the puts and the takes? And, there's a lot that goes into it. It's a tremendous amount of work. But, when we do it right, then we all have clarity of why we're doing it. We all have clarity in how we're going to do it. And then we all have belief in the metrics of what we can go to achieve. And then that makes the delivery to the sales team incredibly easy, because I am not going to deliver a single thing to the sales team unless I can clearly articulate why this is important, and why it's important to both the company, the individuals, so the sellers, and the customers. If I can't explain those three things, we probably should not be doing it. And we should think of what is the different way or, of getting to the final metrics that we want.
in some of your description, a lot of like the complexity around planning came through, right? Like there are so many teams involved. You're doing this not just for what this year looks like, but what does next year look like? There are a lot of moving pieces, even with the change in the market. What aspects are most commonly overlooked when you do this type of long-term planning, or actually, near-term planning?
The customer. 100%. The customer gets overlooked. And what the market can bear in this current moment. We all join tech companies because we are building something bigger and greater for a need that is there. We believe we are fundamentally changing an industry or, whatever it may be, a way that people operate. Right, Gong, you guys have changed the way sellers coach themselves and, course correct through the way. However, when we get into these planning cycles and these complexities, like I'm dealing with analysts, I'm dealing with finance folks, and you get into the math and the weeds of it, you suddenly lose sight of actually what we're trying to accomplish. And so I work really hard when we're looking at any of this to understand, okay, how does this impact the customer? How does this impact the companies? How does this impact the individual? And, we can't always say a positive thing for all three. Sometimes we have to make the trade-offs, right? But we always have to bring that lens in of how possible is this?
You might have touched on it, Chris, which is like you have the big ideas, like your three whys, right? Team, company, client. Then you get into the weeds of it, and you know me, I don't math. I get confused very quickly with math, and I think, as you said, you get in the weeds. Is that the primary reason teams lose sight of the customer, or is there maybe like another factor or something else in play that kind of prevents teams from keeping the customer first during this planning period?
Yeah, I mean it's a high stakes moment, right? I'm making decisions that are going to impact the way sellers build their pipeline and potentially make commissions, and I'm making decisions that are going to impact how competitors respond to us. We're making decisions that are going to impact our ability to achieve the company metrics to hit longer term goals that we want to achieve. And so it's a very high stakes moment in any type of planning process. So you have to be analytical, you have to be detail oriented, and you have to be grounded in the customer and the market. Like that's my role as the sales leader and the face to the market. My role is to bring the reality of the market and the customer and the prospect. And it's finance's role to say, these are the binary metrics we must hit. Then it's everyone's, it's operations role to say, this is what's going to take to support this. It's great that the sales team wants to go do that, but oh, hey guys, what about us? We have to support this. And then it's the role of all of us to actually sit down, put our egos to the side, and come with a plan that's achievable, that's aggressive, and something that we don't lose sight of the customer on.
I like it. And you mentioned, keeping the sales team in mind, right? How they're going to build pipeline, how they're going to make money. When you're planning major changes like training, new product rollouts, maybe territories, that sort of thing, how do you prepare your team of 100 plus sellers and all those supporting go-to-market teams?
Yeah. I don't think there's any silver bullet way, right? But usually, before the half turns, I already have a very good idea of what we need to do for the second half. And if there's going to be a shift, how do I effectively get the team in the direction we need them to go in the short term? And then how do I start planning about what we're going to need for the back half of the half? So Q4 in this case, right? So here's what I did in this current turn. We knew we were going to have to shift our focus to a different type of customer and a different part of the prospect base in order for us to hit specific milestones we want to achieve. And this is a great thing for the business because it catapults us in our ability to support agents in the way that we want. It enables us to maximize efficiency within the business. And there's a great market for sellers to go after. So it's this great moment. So what I did in June was I ran a SPiff. And I ran a SPiff that was very specific to the second half plan before delivering the second half plan. So I had and it was a very rich SPiff. So we had the entire team now suddenly going, oh, okay, I'm going to go shift over here because I want to go earn some money in the last month of the quarter after just, we're coming out of the pandemic. So it's a great moment. So now we're running into the second half. Everyone's got this pipeline already built towards the second half without knowing it. And then we're rolling out and delivering the plan in a couple days here. And when we do, everyone will see that kind of like, the dots will click. They'll go, okay, you actually prepared us for this. And so that's one piece. The other piece is I pull my leaders in early and often and make sure that they're aware of how I'm thinking about it, the puts and the takes. I'm pretty transparent there, and help start preparing them to start preparing their teams for what's about to come and how to think about the second half and what we need to do. So no one's coming in to the plan surprised. If they are, they weren't listening during the month of June and weren't paying attention. So, we don't want any of this to be a surprise. And then we just want people to understand what's the path? How do I make my money? All right, let's go.
One of those signals is probably like, wait, there's a SPiff? That's when you're like, oh, my man, that's not good. We're all moving. We're all shifting to the left.
They've all figured out, wait a second, his SPiff's coming out. What are we trying to do? But, it's, hey, if I can reward folks for making the shift and pushing, I'm going to do it every time and, create those moments.
Well, SPiffs are usually used for I don't know. I mean, maybe just in my experience, I feel like kind of like motivation or like team morale, right? It's like, things are good or great, and let's see if we can do more, right? Like who can dunk on an 11-foot hoop? I don't know. Let's find out. Basketball hoops are usually 10 feet for anyone who's uncertain about that one. But I haven't. You're welcome. It wasn't just for you because I knew you went to a Warriors game, but some people might be like, I don't understand why he said that. But it's interesting to hear how you can use a SPiff strategically, right, to kind of kind of warm up or get people rolling in that direction. So that's interesting to me.
Yeah, it's kind of like getting them out of their comfort zone to try something different that maybe the company or the business wants to try out. I can kind of see it that way too. Yeah,
absolutely. And we explain, here's the SPiff and here's why we're doing it. Here's why we need it. Anything new that we roll out has to have a very strong why. Yeah. And, we have a very high performing team that once they connect the why, they understand and they'll run at it.
Mm-hmm. So we talked about change in the plan. So, think like when you were planning for 2021, you had an annual plan in place. Mm-hmm. Like there was some goals, things that you were driving towards. Yeah. Then something shifted. You had this new shift on this new prospect base. What warrants a change in the plan? Are there certain criteria? Like when is it okay to change the plan? Is it something that's just subjective and based on your gut, you think that we need to evolve something? So what are those criteria for when it's okay to change?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say this is the criteria. One of the things we look at is, our industry, we're very, we're many times beholden to the real estate market, and that dictate a lot of our company metrics. It doesn't necessarily dictate our sales, our growth metrics, because we can adjust and adapt and accelerate or decelerate based on how the market's operating to have a very strong command and control over our growth rates. But this year, as an example, the real estate market is wild. It is a very competitive environment. So if anyone's out and tried to buy their home, or Devin, probably your second or third home, you've probably realized it's very competitive, and you have to pay well over asking. So that impacts us and how we think about where we need to focus our time. And, one thing I would add is I think it's irresponsible of a business not to change the plan and not to shift. The world moves way too fast. Everything that we thought would happen in 21 in November of 2020, there's no way for us to be able to predict it. We're making our best guess. And once you get new information, you should act on it, and it'd be irresponsible not to act on it.
I love how you phrase that.
Yeah. I was going to say the plan I had at the beginning of 2020 was a beautiful plan, a great plan.
Yeah.
Actually, in December, Gina was there for this. I got on in front of our whole marketing team. I said, unless the world burns, this is my plan for 2020. And about 8 to 10 weeks later, the world burned, and I was like, "Man, that was such a good plan. I'll never get to use."
Oh man, yeah.
The one that got away.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. And just for clarification, 9th or 10th house is what I'd be
good.
looking
Sorry.
for. So everyone knows I'm a complete complete mogul. Kidding, of course. But Sheena and I did both of us moved independently, not together. And I did have a Compass real estate agent, so supporting the cause. And
That's great. That's great. Congratulations. Another thing that I would hit on is when I'm looking at the long-term plan.
Yeah.
So what do we need to achieve in the long term? What are the kind of big bucket item things that we're going to have to do in order to get there? And what I'll look at in the context when I say, what can the team bear? What's the current skill set of the team? I'm setting training plans in place now and coaching plans in place now to prepare the team for what we need to be accomplishing in 22 in this current example, or even 23, depending on how big of an initiative it may need to be. So then when 22 happens and we get to that moment, we don't have a team that's flat-footed and not ready for the moment and not ready to just dive in and jump in. And so a lot of what I'm doing is understanding what are the skill sets that are going to be required in order for us to do that, whatever that thing is. And, we've all been in many sales organizations and many different sales models, and we know there's, someone who's phenomenal at a transactional model may not be great at a relationship building enterprise model or vice versa. And so what's going to be required to be successful? What is our model? And what do we need to adjust and change and adapt to be able to get there? And do we even need to split off, separate motions, which we've done, and created, multiple teams or, whatever it may be.
Yeah, that really pulls in the human side of planning, where it's not just like numbers. You're not just looking at like numbers of people, but what are the skills? How can I help you? How can I grow who I have there in place today? Or what am I looking for in that next hire? That's such a vital part of kind of looking at the more qualitative side of planning.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, how can I help every individual grow in themselves and their career and their skill sets? And how do we do that in a way that helps us achieve, the ultimate company goals and drive success for everyone?
But I imagine, as someone who's been a head of sales for many moons, but not too many moons where you're gray, you look great, that you have surely learned something. Every time you do the 6-month planning, right? You learn something new, whether the hard way or the easy way. I'm curious if you can share, what did you learn in the front half of this year? Was there something that you learned from that financial planning?
Every time I roll out a plan, I always have this grand vision of how it will go and how people will receive it.
Perfectly, smoothly, without a flaw.
Yeah, everyone's going to love it. Everyone's going to fully get it, and it's going to fully connect. I think, one big lesson that I had, I can't remember how many moons ago to your question, that I've implemented, which is, we have a big national rollout plan. We always want then the local teams and the local leaders and the frontline leaders to then have a fast follow-up, which is either the very next moment or the next day after people have had time to digest. And they have their kickoff, and they actually review a lot of what we did in the national and then connect it to specifically their team and then connect it specifically to the individuals. So whenever we do a rollout, it's not a big rah, everything's amazing. I get off of, now the Zoom, excited and feeling great because I feel like I did a great presentation. I'm immediately, calling every single local leader. How do you think it went? What was the chatter? What do we need to clean up in next week's meeting in our, national call? What do we need to reinforce? And so everyone's coming with that. So it's not just a single point in time. It's a broader strategy of how do we do it nationally? Then how do we bring it down to each individual team? Then how do we bring it down to each individual? And then a week later, what do we need to clean up? Where did I mess up? And what do I need to clarify or adjust? And so it's never just a moment in time type of thing.
All right, Chris. So we asked every single one of our guests that joins us on the show the same question. So we'll ask you the same, which is, how would you describe sales in one word?
I mean, I think you can go so many different directions on this. One that just immediately came to mind without me trying to edit or filter it, I guess, would be dynamic. Because when you're prospecting, you have to be open and dynamic to what you've learned to adjust your approach. When you're in a prospect conversation, if you try and run it through a script or run a black and white decision tree of if they said this, so then this, you're not going to be as successful as you can be. You have to be dynamic within the conversation. So you have to actively listen. You have to understand what's happening and map those connections. And then, for people like me who like to change the plan once every 6 months, you also have to be dynamic in your ability to manage your business, right? And so that just, being in this podcast today, that was the very first word that came to mind. So I figured I should be true to the first thing that came to mind versus trying to give the answer that will make me sound smart.
It's okay. The gut answer made you sound smart, if that makes sense.
Oh, thank you.
Exactly. I think you should add dynamic to any job rec that you put up for your team. You want to make sure that all your future sellers that join your team are dynamic.
That's such a great point. It's always funny when I'm interviewing folks and they put words like that in their tagline, whatever it may be, all those just words like world class, best in class, dynamic, those different pieces. It's dangerous because I'll latch onto it and I'll ask, okay, give me a situation where you were dynamic and how, and so many people get caught flat-footed where it just goes to, okay, this is potentially the type of seller they are. Yeah,
I was going to say maybe in your interview you could ask people, how would you define dynamic in one word? And see if they have us in the release. But I like yours better. Yours is tougher. Yours like give me an example where I'm like, oh, I didn't know you read my cover letter. Let me think about this for a second. Fantastic, Chris. Always a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for hanging out with Reveal. As you might have seen me, I was typing a bunch of notes down. A lot of great takeaways for our audience. So just want to say thank you.
No, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being on.
So much fun. Thanks, Chris.
All right. Thank you both.